This is Christopher John Björkness. It is August 30th, 2023. I have done a series of videos breaking down the Kabbalistic codes embedded in Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke's great film 2001, A Space Odyssey. And I have many new insights into that I arrived at when I watched the film again in preparation for my interview with Ryder Lee on the Raised by Giants channel on YouTube. I suggest everyone take a look at that. And I've taken a number of screenshots, and I'm going to take a real deep dive and do the ultimate breakdown of the Kabbalah of 2001, A Space Odyssey. It's incredible. It's very crystal clear that this is the story of the ascent up the tree of life in the form of the planets. And the main character, Dave Bowman, represents Jacob and the Messiah, son of David. And 2001 represents 6001 on the Anno Lucas calendar, the beginning of the Sabbath millennium, the Messianic era, and the rise of Messiah, son of David. All the planets appear as they do on the tree of life. The spacecraft represent Jacob's ladder, and the chariot, the Merkavah, of Ezekiel, chapters 1 and 10. I'm going to show you all that. It's incredible. I even figured out that Esau eats red lentil stew, just as he does in Genesis. And Jacob eats goat stew, representing the goat stew that he and Rebekah made to feed to their father Isaac. I show how they both appear in the womb. And at first, Esau leaves the womb first, just as in Genesis. And then Jacob returns, and he leaves the womb first to return back to the earth, just as in the story of Peretz and Zerah. So it's really incredible. I have a lot of visual images that prove everything I've been saying and go much deeper. I want to thank the wonderful, kind, generous people who have been contributing to make this video possible. I'm really struggling, and it helps out tremendously from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. You really saved me. And anyone who would like to contribute, there will be links in the description below. You can also contribute at my website, cjbbooks.com, where you'll find all my book titles for sale and links to my donation page. So let's dig into it. It's very cool, very telling, and Kubrick's movie really reveals a lot about Kabbalah and makes a wonderful vehicle for teaching people what Kabbalah is all about, its ultimate aims. And it even goes into, I think the government was involved in all of this, and I'll do future videos explaining why I arrived at that conclusion. And they were setting us up to have the Messianic era begin in 2001, as in 9/11/2001. And this movie was pre-programming. It was sympathetic magic foreshadowing the rise of the Messianic era in 6001 on the Freemasonic and Zoharite Anno Lucas calendar. So let's get into it. The movie opens up depicting the three Sephirot, Malkut, which is Mother Earth, the female aspect of God Shekhinah, Yesod, the foundation stone, the Tzaddik, the righteous prophet of the Messiahs, who is the moon and the phallus of the Godhead, and the sun, Tiferet, which is the male aspect of the Godhead. And the goal of Kabbalah is to utilize the Messiah, the foundation stone and righteous prophet of the moon, as the phallus of God, to have intercourse with the earth And the Israelites pray and engage in intercourse themselves in order to arouse the phallus of Yesod, so that the female aspect of the Godhead, Shekinah, Mother Earth, Malkut, can be raised to the level of the male aspect of the God, the Son, Tiferet, Yod-He, in Yod-He, Vav-He, the Tetragrammaton. The female aspect is Vav-He. And the goal is to utilize Yesod, the Messiah, as the phallus to spread the seed of the Israelites on the earth and populate the earth with a new generation of 600,000 immortal androgynes, and to reunite the male and female aspects of the Godhead into one androgynous form, the form of Adam Kadmon, Keter, the crown, so that both on earth and in heaven, as above, so below, all beings are androgynous and immortal gods. This is accomplished through the vehicle of Deat, the hidden 11th Sephirot, which appears in the film as the monolith. And it is related to the planet Saturn, which the color of Saturn is black. And Saturn is represented by the metal lead, and it appears as a large lead monument. It is erect, like an aroused phallus. In the original correspondence between Clarke and Kubrick, it was represented as a black cube, which we see all over the place in science fiction, in ufology, and in the Tefillin, the Holy of Holies of the Temple of Solomon, as I've explained in my other videos, and we'll go over that a bit more. Keter, again, is part of the Godhead. The Godhead is this trinity of Sephirot at the very top, which is in the divine realm above the abyss. Below the abyss, there are 6 more Sephirot, which are referred to as the Zer on Pin. The Godhead is the first intellect, the mind and the intellectual aspect of the Sephirot. And the Zer on Pin is the emotional aspect of the Sephirot. And at the bottom is the kingdom of Malkut. It is the female aspect of God, Shekinah, and the goal is to use Yesod, the phallus, to arouse the male aspect of God, to have intercourse with the female aspect of God, as they did in the Temple of Solomon, so that they are reunited, balance between the female evil pillar of severity and the male merciful pillar of mercy is reachieved in the androgyny of the Godhead, and the Messiah, son of David, who is androgynous Adam Kadmon, will then repopulate the earth with 600,000 immortal androgynes. And that is what is being depicted throughout the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. The monolith that appears and descends on the earth to the ape men is erect like a phallus, and it represents the ramp of raising Malkut to the female aspect, to the sun, the male aspect through the vehicle of the moon. You can see that the moon is partially hidden. The 11th hidden Sephirah, Deat, which represents knowledge in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and is a portal that allows prophets to ascend across from the Zer on Pin, which propels them across the great abyss to the Godhead, to Binah, where they then see the white light of the divine realm and reunite with God and become righteous prophets. And that is depicted in this image, where it appears as a ramp and an erect phallus to lift the earth, Malkut, to the sun, Tiferet, the female aspect to the male aspect, through the vehicle of the moon. And we only see a little bit of the crescent moon, which resembles bull horns. And in many ancient religions, you will see the sun as a disk sitting inside bull horns to represent the sun's illumination of the moon and the combination of those two luminaries and union of those two luminaries. You can see that in the god Hathor and in the Egyptian god Apis, and then there are many corollaries in other religions. This is where things start to get really interesting in the movie. A leopard perched on a rock, which is significant, leaps down and attacks this poor little firstborn primal man in the form of an ape man. And this ape man represents the firstborn of Egypt, who are slaughtered by the Lord in the form of shining darkness. It happens overnight. And it is at nighttime that the leopard comes out with its shining eyes and slays this ape man. And you can see when it turns its head that its eyes glow. The leopard is an occult symbol in Kabbalah and many other ancient occult beliefs. Its two eyes represent the luminaries of the sun and the moon. Its spots signify stars and constellations in the night sky. And what is being depicted here is the slaughter of the firstborn and the sacrifice of the scapegoat to Samael in the wilderness. Samael is the angel of the Lord, and he is Gevurah and Din, the power and punishment and judgment of the Sephirah Gevurah, also called Din, which is the fifth emanation, and which serves to accuse, prosecute, and punish the non-Israelites on the pillar of severity. The Israelites receive the mercy of the Lord on the pillar of mercy from the Sephirah Chesed, which is Jupiter on the pillar of mercy in the tree of life. So this, in the movie, is foreshadowing this battle where Esau and Cain, Esau's the reincarnation of the soul of Cain, are killed by the God of Israel, Seth Typhon, and its angel, Samael, which are essentially one and the same thing, and represents the slaughter of the firstborn for the benefit of the secondborn. This also, and this is really clever, this foreshadows a recurring theme throughout the movie. The book of Genesis tells the story how Jacob wrestled with the angel of the Lord. That's clarified better in Hosea. And he wrestles with this angel and defeats this angel in the nighttime. The nighttime is the time of the angel Samael. It is the time of darkness, the slaughter of the firstborn. But to the Israelites, it is the shining darkness. It is the darkness in which they see, but the non-Israelites do not see, and it kills them off. And Jacob wins his wrestling match with the leopard, but Esau is killed in his wrestling match with the leopard. And this wrestling match that Jacob has with the Lord, with Samael, takes, with Seth Typhon is what it really is, takes the form of his battle with the demonically possessed artificial intelligence of Hal. In the book, Clark specifies that Hal is possessed by the serpent who fed knowledge to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. This fits along with Rudolf Steiner's assertion that in the future there would be artificial intelligence that would be imbued with the demonic soul of the Ahrimanic spirit of Satan. So keep that in mind, that this represents feeding the scapegoat to Samael in the wilderness so that the non-Israelites are punished and killed off for the sins of the Israelites. It represents the slaughter of the firstborn Egyptians, ultimately the slaughter of all the firstborn non-Israelites in terms of the complete extermination of the non-Israelites, and it represents the wrestling match between Samael and Esau, which is not depicted in the Bible, but evidently is a Kabbalistic belief, and the wrestling match between Samael and Jacob. Now, this wrestling match between Samael and Esau is encoded very, very subtly into the oral traditions of Judaism in the form of Rebekah justifying the reason why she betrayed her son Esau in favor of her son Jacob. And the explanation given by the Kabbalists is that Rebekah did this because she wisely foresaw that Esau would fail in his efforts at Tikkun Olam to rectify the world during the 6 days of creation. The Godhead, the demiurge, Tiferet, messed up the creation of the world, and it needs to be repaired. The Zeron Pin and Malkut were the 7 lower Sephirotic vessels that shattered. And I'm explaining all this because Kubrick brilliantly portrays this, literally portrays this in the film. And I'm going to show you how with screenshots. So Esau fails in its wrestling match with Samael by trying to rectify the Godhead instead of trying to rectify the 7 lower Sephirot. But Jacob rectifies the 7 lower Sephirot and wins his wrestling match against the angel of the Lord Samael, and therefore becomes the Messiah, son of David. And the character Frank Poole represents Esau, the Messiah, son of Joseph, Jesus Christ, who tries to battle the Godhead and is killed off doing so by the spirit of Samael and by the science and technology, the gnosis of the tree of knowledge, the unripe gnosis of the tree of knowledge. Here you can see the leopard's eyes are the sun and the moon in occultism. Its spots are the stars of darkness being reflected in the film by the clouds. And they also represent the constellations in occultism. The leopard is perched upon the rock. I'm going to explain in a moment why that's significant. And it has slain a zebra. The zebra represents darkness and light and the transition of darkness into shining darkness. This is not the light of daylight. This is the consumption of all daylight by chaos into the shining darkness that arises in the Messianic era. The sun is the god Ra, and the god Ra has been slain. The god Ra has golden light. A zebra has the silvery white moonlight of the Godhead. And this is being very carefully encoded into the film and metaphorically portrayed by the leopard, the shining darkness, the night sky, slaughtering the zebra in order to turn dark into light. A Dictionary of Angels, including the Fallen Angels by Gustav Davidson, which was published in 1967, and therefore before the making of the film in 1968, talks about the archangel Kamael. In Legends of the Jews, he's called Kemul by Louis Ginsburg, and this actually represents Samael. And he appears in the guise of a leopard crouched on a rock. In the Kabbalah, Kamael is one of the 10 archangels of the Briatic world. He is the ruler of the planet Mars. That is clearly Samael. The planet Mars is the Sephirah Gevurah, also called Din. It is power, justice, and punishment. And Chamael Chamuel is the angel who wrestled with Jacob. The Kabbalists make very clear that that angel is Samael. The leopard body Kamael, alias Shemuel, Simiel, Kumael, Kemuel. The Kabbalists say I'm not supposed to pronounce these names. It's bad luck to talk about Samael, according to Isaac Luria. While serving in hell as a Count Palatine and ruler of the wicked planet Mars, served at the same time in heaven as an archangel in the divine presence. It was Kamael who accompanied God. Samael is a very positive figure in Kabbalah. He is a very necessary element of the evil inclination. He provides temptation, accusation, prosecution, and punishment. But he provides all of those not only to the Israelites, but to the non-Israelites. And the non-Israelites feed him the scapegoat, which Kubrick portrays as the ape man in the wilderness, which Samael consumes, and then he gets confused. He stops lusting after Shekinah so that she is freed to reunite with Tiferet, the male aspect of the Godhead, and ceases to have intercourse with evil Samael. But evil is good in the dualism of Kabbalah, and it serves its purpose in the rectification of the world. So the devil, Samael, is a very necessary and important figure, and he is Jesus Christ, and his children are Esau, and Esau is depicted by Frank Poole. Jacob is depicted by Dave Bowman, as in Messiah, son of David, the Rainbow Man. The rainbow is a messianic image, just as it was the image of the rebirth after the world when it was cleansed in the great flood. And here, Kubrick leaves no doubt that the night leopard perched on a rock is the one who killed the firstborn of Egypt. And the firstborn of Egypt appear as this Cain-Esau tribe of primal man, ape man. You can see the firstborn child who's going to be slain in the night. And when this scene takes place, when these ape men are frightened in the cave at night, the period in which the Israelites see brightest, you can hear the lion roaring loudly again and again. And when it roars, the ape men cringe and are afraid because it's coming to kill the firstborn of Egypt, which ultimately represents all non-Israelites. In the movie, we see Frank Poole gets killed by his Kelly-Potic vessel. He gets killed trying to perform Tikkun Olam on the Godhead. The Sephirotic vessels of Keter, Chokhmah, and Binah, which is a mistake because those vessels never shattered. We also see that the non-Israelites who are in the hibernation pod are also killed by Samael, who has taken over as the soul of the artificial intelligence of Hal, of the entire spacecraft, and Hal kills the non-Israelites. So their own gnosis, their own science and technology derived from touching the hidden 11 Sephirot in the form of the monolith, which represents the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The fruit of that tree was unripe. It remains unripe until 6001, not coincidentally. And it serves as the curse of death. And it brings death to these firstborn primal men, the firstborn of Israel. This also depicts the ape men as having dominion over the animals when they chase away the tapirs from consuming their food. So they protect their food supply, and that portrays what Genesis says, that man will have dominion over the animals. Here again, it gets very interesting. In the story in Genesis, the twins, Esau and Jacob, struggle with each other in the womb. Jacob tries to pull Esau back into the womb so that he can be firstborn, but Esau prevails and is the firstborn. Jacob resents that because the firstborn inherits the double portion from their father Isaac of the present world, Olam Hazeh, and the world to come, Olam Haba, both of which are portrayed in the film as Malkut, the front of the spacecraft. But tricky Jacob is very clever, and he steals Esau's birthright and blessing to the waters of primordial chaos. And that angers Esau. And Esau develops a hatred of Jacob and sets about to kill him with the weapons of science and technology. And he succeeds in killing many of the Israelites. But ultimately, those weapons of science and technology, the unripe fruit, the curse of death, kill off all of Esau's descendants in the form of those in the hibernation pod and in the form of Esau, Messiah, son of Joseph, Frank Poole. So Frank Poole dies in his battle, just as Messiah, son of Joseph, is slated to die in the wars that he fights for the benefit of Israel by duping the non-Israelites into serving this messianic agenda. And that is cryptically portrayed in the film by Esau and his tribe, the firstborn, who are afraid of the leopard who kills the firstborn in the night. They had control of this pool of primordial water in the desert, which was vital to their continued survival. Jacob, tricky Jacob, sneaks up among the rocks and scares away Esau and steals his birthright, just as tricky Jacob tricked Esau into surrendering his birthright and blessings in exchange for a bowl of red lentil stew when Esau was starving after his failed hunt. So that is all being depicted in this scene, and it's very important to understand that biblically this represents the generation of the hatred for Esau towards Jacob. And there is also the hatred of the God of Israel for Esau and the love of the God of Israel for Jacob, depicted in the first chapter of Malachi. Then the monolith appears in its phallic image to raise up the earth to the sun and reunite the male and female aspects of the androgynous Godhead. And Adam and Eve come and consume the forbidden fruit. In the original Hebrew, it represents touching the forbidden fruit. And they obtain the gnosis, the knowledge of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, of Deat. Deat means knowledge. And that knowledge can be used by Jacob to rectify the world. But it is abused by Esau and brings the curse of death, as Rebekah foresaw, which is why she favored Jacob over Esau. Adam and Eve touch the forbidden fruit of the tree of knowledge, Deat. They learn how to utilize technology. One of them picks up a femur bone and smashes the rest of a tapir skeleton with that femur bone. And that represents Prometheus giving mankind the knowledge of fire. It brings the curse of death. Fire and technology progress man from the Garden of Eden in the Golden Age through the Silver Age, then the Bronze Age, where man becomes increasingly corrupt, then in the Heroic Age, and finally in the Iron Age, when science and technology have completely destroyed the Garden of Eden, made the earth uninhabitable, where cities have overtaken the forests and the farms, and man turns against man, brother against brother, families against families. This is all depicted in the New Testament in Matthew chapter 24. It's depicted in the Talmud. It's depicted in the Hadiths of Islam. And it's depicted in Kubrick's film by the ape man picking up a femur and smashing Tapir skeleton and then smashing Jacob. He's pissed off at Jacob for stealing his birthright to the pool of primordial waters, for stealing his blessing to the world to come, and he kills Jacob, one of the tribe of Jacob. He doesn't kill them all. And eventually that same science and technology kills all of Esau's descendants. And Jacob rectifies the world by lifting the sparks from hell, performing Tikkun Olam in the proper way, and becoming Messiah, son of David, becoming the righteous prophet to be reborn as the firstborn, returns to Malkut, the earth, in the Messianic era. Esau hates Jacob and takes revenge. This is the ape man portrayed as Abel and Jacob. Cain, Esau, comes along and slaughters him with that femur bone of a tapir, bashes his brains out. There's the femur bone. This is Cain slaughtering Abel. This is Esau taking revenge on Jacob for stealing his birthright and blessings. In the Platonic and Mithraic mythologies and philosophies, which generated Judaism. Judaism is a syncretic religion. The Alexandrian Jews adopted Platonism and created Judaism out of it. In that mythology, it is said that the Godhead was one and undivided, perfect unity, perfect love, perfect goodness. And in order to form creation, it had to emanate so that the beings of creation did not destroy the unity of the Godhead. So it emanated human souls. Those human souls are said to have crossed over the great abyss of the stars, the leopard skin, the skin of the serpent, the sparkling illuminated skin of the serpent that rotates around the earth as the Ouroboros. And then the human soul descended, and this is just the soul, descended to the planet Saturn, became a little bit corrupted, and then became increasingly corrupted and evil as it became more distant from the goodness of God. It suffered from deprivation from the divineness of God as it was separated and descended, emanated across the 7 planets, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, to the earth, where it became trapped in the vessel, the prison of human flesh, which is composed of minerals and matter, which suffer from complete deprivation of the oneness and perfection of the monad, called the Holy One in the Torah. And the soul becomes trapped in that clay, that flesh vessel that the potter molds to form the body. All of those images pervade the Old Testament and Kabbalah. So the body's trapped in a keli pot, in a shell, but it has the divine spark of the soul which emanated. And these vessels shattered, these 7 vessels shattered and formed shells that created the bodies that trapped the sparks in the evil, corrupted, material world of Satan, which is the earth, which is the female side, the evil left-hand side, the Sitra Achra, the Sitra de Smola, the right-hand side, the sparks and the souls, is the Sitra Yemina and the Sitra de Kadosha, the holy side. And those 2 things combine to form human beings on earth. But in the Platonic system, the philosopher, the religious man, uses gnosis of the first intellect to realize that the forms that he sees are illusions, like shadows on a cave wall, and that he has to free the divine spark of his soul so that it can ascend back across these 7 planets, performing epistrophy as opposed to emanation, engaging in the return as opposed to the descent away and deprivation from God, and reemerge and reunite with the Holy One and lose their individual existence. This is represented also by the 7 spheres, the 7 heavenly spheres that were thought to surround the earth and rotate around the earth in the ancient geocentric system and their mythology. And so that is where the mythology of the 7 days comes from, and the holiness of God as Saturn and the 7th planet, and the Sabbath as in Sabbatai, as in Saturn, 7th millennium, 7th day of rest, in which non-Israelites will no longer exist. This is depicted in Kabbalah on the Sephirotic tree of life. The light, first the Ein Sof formed a vessel in itself by contracting, and then it emanated light into that vessel. The light then emanated and more vessels formed down to Chokhmah, Binah, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malkut. These 7 lower vessels underneath the great abyss shattered, and they combined the shattering of their vessels with the sparks and trapped the sparks in darkness. So the soul has to re-emerge, going in the reverse path of the emanations through epistrophe, through ascent, back up across the Sephirot to the divine realm to reunite with God. And any Kabbalist who accomplishes that and crosses over to Binah becomes a righteous prophet. And this is what is happening in the film. They ascend to the moon, which is Yesod, and the monolith appears, which is the 11th hidden Sephirot. It appears on the dark side of the moon, the hidden side of the moon, and it is not only on the dark side. Kubrick takes it even further and buries it on the moon. And there need to be lights in the form of the priestly breastplate shining on it to illuminate it for it to be seen, because it is the hidden Sephirot of knowledge, Deat. It is the tree of knowledge which enables the Kabbalist during the dark night of the soul to cross over the abyss from the colored lights of the rainbow below in the Zeir Anpin and Malkut to the white light of the Godhead in the white room, utilizing the gnosis to rocket him across from the planet Jupiter to the planet Saturn, where he can unite with God, become totally righteous, become a prophet of all the future, and then be reborn and return to Malkut as Messiah, son of David, the righteous prophet, to repopulate the earth with 600,000 immortal androgynes. And this hidden Sephirah, Deat, knowledge, is portrayed as the monolith extended into a phallic rectangular cuboid. The spacecraft depicts all of this in a brilliant way. The Godhead is portrayed as the radar dishes that send the signal and receive the signals to Earth in the form of Keter, Chokhmah, and Binah. This is the androgynous Godhead. Keter is the androgyne. Chokhmah is the male aspect. Binah is the female aspect on the evil pillar of severity. The male aspect is the pillar of mercy on the right-hand side as opposed to the left-hand side. The middle represents the balance. Malkut, Yesod, and Tiferet, and Keter and Deat are all androgynous. And in order for the true androgyny of Malkut and Tiferet to be reunited, the phallus of the messiahs has to be aroused to cause them to engage in intercourse and reunite as an androgyne and obtain the perfect balance of the middle column of the Sephirotic tree. So the Godhead, the androgynous Godhead, is portrayed here by these radar dishes. This represents Jacob's ladder. The Sephirotic tree is Jacob's ladder that allows a human being to cross the ladder of the 7 planets and arrive at the Godhead. And that is the story told again of Jacob, of David Bowman, in the book of Genesis. The monolith is Deat, the black cube, that enables the Kabbalistic adept to cross the great abyss from the Zer Anpin to the Godhead and become a righteous prophet. The Zer Anpin is depicted at the back of the rocket ship as the propelling force that enables the soul to be launched across the abyss, utilizing knowledge, Deat, as the force. And Arthur C. Clarke talked about that in a prologue to the republication of his book, how they actually utilize the gravitational force of the planets to launch rocket ships across to be able to reach Saturn in what he described as almost imitation of what's portrayed in the film, which is a metaphor for the soul on the dark night of the soul leaping across the abyss to the realm of the Godhead. So this is portrayed by the propulsion exhaust vents on the back of the spacecraft. There are 6 of them to represent the 6 Sephirot of Zer Anpin, the emotional Sephirot, and they are surrounded by a hexagon, which is related to the planet Saturn at its pole, and which can be configured into the Star of David, which is 2 triangles representing the principle of as above, so below. It represents the 6 directions, north, south, east, west, above and below, etc. I explain that more in my other videos, which you should check out. And then Malkut is represented by the front of the spacecraft, which is a bulbous globe representing the planet Earth, and that's where the human beings live. That's where Dave Bowman, Messiah, son of David, Jacob, and Frank Poole, Messiah, son of Joseph, Esau, and Cain, all reside. And they are accompanied by hibernating non-Israelites who are trying to ascend up the Sephirot in a futile attempt and trial to reach the Godhead. Only Jacob succeeds in the trial. Only Jacob successfully wrestles the leopard and becomes a righteous prophet. Esau fails. Esau's killed off by the very technology that Esau created. So this depicts it from the side. You can see that the globular spheroid front represents Malkut, the kingdom, the earth. The main body of the spacecraft is Jacob's ladder, which represents the fact that the Sephirot and the planets form a ladder by which the souls of human beings can reascend to their source in the Godhead, in Keter, and become perfected and reunite with God. The Zer Anpin is the propelling engine that enables man to slingshot across the great abyss over to the intellectual realm through the emotional realm. There's another form of spacecraft that takes the form of the chariot, the Merkavah, as in Merkavah mysticism, which is a big part of Kabbalah. It's exactly like Jacob's ladder. In Ezekiel's vision, in chapters 1 and 10, he sees these wheels as a vehicle by which the human soul can ascend to God, like climbing up Jacob's ladder, and the angels can ascend and descend upon Jacob's ladder, and human beings can ascend and descend in a Merkavah vessel. A small sample of this, both chapters should be read to fully understand it, is Ezekiel chapter 1:16. The appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of a beryl, and they four had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. And that is depicted in the film both by this Merkava spacecraft enabling the ascent up the Sephiroth of the planets, and by the famous scene of the squirrel cage, and that's very significant. There's a better shot of the Merkava chariot wheel. Another spacecraft appears in the encrypted form of the Star of David, as above, so below, composed of triangles forming the directions and symbolizing as above, so below, the ascent of Malkut to Tiferet through the vehicle of the phallus of Yesod, and the ascent of the soul from Malkut to Keter to become a righteous prophet. As I explained before, the monolith, the hidden 11th Sephirah De'at, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the force of Saturn, bringing Saturn's knowledge of how to control chaos, appears in the moon. It's discovered. It was hidden. It was buried. And the knowledge has to be revealed by the priests. It is being revealed by lights, which are set in an array of 3 by 4, like the breastplate of the priest, shining on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil to reveal the knowledge that is hidden within the 11th Sephirah De'at, so that on the dark night of the soul, Dave Bowman can shoot from Jupiter to Saturn, conquer the abyss, overcome the dark night of the soul, and triumph as Messiah, and then return to the earth, Malkut, in a purified, rectified form. As I said, Frank Poole is Cain. He is Esau. He is blessed to be the soldier and slave, they call it a blessing, soldier and slave of Jacob in the Bible. So he is portrayed running around the squirrel cage, the Merkava chariot wheel, shadow boxing, throwing jabs, throwing crosses, making uppercuts. And that clearly identifies and marks him as Esau, the man who lives in the fields, the man who is governed by emotion and not intellect, the man who is the soldier for Jacob and fights his battles for him and fights his battles against his brothers so that they annihilate and mutually consume one another. And these are the hibernating pods in which the other Edomites vainly attempt to rectify the world and make the trip up the Merkava, up Jacob's ladder to the Godhead. But they foolishly believe that they have to repair the Godhead, which is not in need of repair because the vessels of the Godhead never shattered. So he is killed by his own kelipat, by his own vessel, which rips off his umbilical cord, his breathing tube, and kills him. He's killed by knowledge. He suffers the curse of death for having touched De'at, which was not meant for him, which was meant for Jacob. And it is Jacob who properly employs it when the fruit becomes ripe to launch over the great abyss from Jupiter to Saturn. Jacob is seen drawing the men inside of the hibernation pods. And that represents Jacob stealing the soul of Esau, Yehida Mashiach, Mashiach Yehida, the soul of the Messiah, son of Joseph, the soul of Tohu Vavohu Choshech, the highest soul, the soul of Seth Typhon, the soul of chaos, which was imparted in the firstborn but Jacob is tricky and deceives them and steals their soul, which is why Frank Poole is portrayed in a yellow suit representing the spark of the soul, and then Dave Bowman is portrayed in a red suit representing blood, which is the soul, after having stolen it from Esau. The Messiah, son of David, is the vessel that inherits the soul of Messiah, son of Joseph. And that's depicted by him drawing them and stealing their soul. This really came as a revelation to me. I rewatched the film in preparation for my interview with Ryder Lee on Raised by Giants. And it was really clever the way that Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke incorporated the story of Isaac, Rebekah, Esau, and Jacob into the film. And one of the ways they did that is they have a scene after he's seen depicted vainly and futilely in his futile attempt to ascend the Sephirot, running around on the Merkavah chariot wheel, shadow boxing as the soldier, Esau as Cain who slew Abel, as the primal ape-man wrestling Samael and battering Jacob with the femur of a tapir. He's portrayed resting on his bed with red glasses. Red marks him as Edom. It represents the red lands of the desert of the Egyptians, the evil lands of the foreigners. And he's shown hairy as a goat. His legs and arms are hairy to portray him as Esau, Seir, the goat who is hairy. He's wearing the red glasses, and his mother and father, Isaac and Rebekah, regretfully inform him that his birthright has been stolen, and they are working on trying to get it back. He's not being properly paid for his work and other things, and he's given instead the blessings to be the soldier and the slave of Jacob. And he is also portrayed as the firstborn in many of the scenes until he is finally killed off, and then Jacob emerges as the firstborn. This is one of the scenes where they're shown climbing into the womb. The womb is where they struggle with one another. Esau leaves the womb first, and Jacob is second to leave the womb, because Esau has not yet been killed off. It is not the scene of the birth of Peretz and Zerah. It is instead the scene of Esau and Jacob. Another one of the things that's really hilarious is as Esau emerges as Frank Poole, as the firstborn, he consumes red lentil porridge, red lentil stew, just as Esau does in the Bible when Jacob tricks him, starves him, and under coercion and duress offers him red lentil stew in exchange for his birthright and blessings, just as Jacob, the second-born ape-man, came and stole his lake of primordial waters of chaos in the wilderness of the desert, of the red sands of the desert, of the red lands of the desert. Kubrick and Clarke have Esau, Frank Poole, eating red lentil stew, which is very significant. The other color of lentils is green, so he is definitely chowing down Esau's portion. And then even equally telling, Jacob, rainbow man, Messiah, son of David, eats goat stew, as in Rebekah and Jacob conspiring to feed Isaac the goat stew. And notice that he is not a hairy man, But in the story of Jacob and Esau, he puts on goatskin to imitate Esau, to trick blind Isaac into believing that he is Esau. This deception is vaguely portrayed by Esau and Jacob discussing how they're going to kill Hel, but Hel is able to figure it out. Isaac doesn't figure it out until it's too late, and he gives Jacob's blessing, Esau's blessing, to Jacob. And this is being portrayed by Jacob eating the goat stew. Esau failed in his quest to hunt for venison, so tricky Rebekah and tricky Jacob make the goat stew because Rebekah knows that Esau will fail in his mission of tikkun olam, but Jacob will succeed. So Esau eats the red lentils. Jacob and Isaac eat the goat stew. They get the good victuals. Jacob is also portrayed as the intellectual. Remember that Frank Pohl was shown as a boxer, as the soldier, as the emotional one, the one who works the fields, the beast of burden, the soldier of burden, the mercenary, the slave. Jacob is instead the intellectual. In his tent, he is called the mission commander. The mission is the Jewish mission of tikkun olam. And the chess moves involve the bishop, the rook, the pawn, the king, and the queen. All of that represents Jacob's wrestling match, and the figures of Isaac, Rebekah, Esau, and Jacob, as well as the figures of Lilith, Samael, Yahweh, Shekinah, El, and Asherah, and it's all cryptically encoded in that way as Jacob playing chess in his tent, properly dressed, not like the barbaric, wild, emotional Esau. Jacob is intellectual, studying the Torah in his tent. Here's an additional depiction that becomes very important later on in the film. The Godhead, Keter, Adam Kadmon, Chokhmah, wisdom, Binah, understanding, Deat represents knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge are the three main aspects, attributes of God portrayed in the Torah, are represented by this radar dish on top of Jacob's ladder. It is the very highest point. It is the summit, the apex, the peak of the Sephirotic tree of life, which is Jacob's ladder, by which the soul climbs from Malkut through the propulsion and vehicle of the Zer Anpin to the Godhead to reunite with the God that emanated that soul across Jacob's ladder. These three Sephirot of the Godhead are emblemized by three portals on the front of the earth, Malkut, Shekinah, the kingdom. And they are the portals by which the Kelipotic vessels, the Kelipah Nogah of Jacob and the Kelipot of Esau, leave the earth and can re-enter the earth through these portals which mirror the Godhead. But there's another portal that is in the shape of the monolith, in the rectangular shape of the monolith, called the emergency airlock. And it is only De'at which enables the human soul to enter the realm, the divine realm of the Godhead. So when Jacob is trying to re-emerge to Malkut, the earth, Hel, the demonically, satanically possessed artificial intelligence, seals up these portals. But Jacob utilizes his intellect, his knowledge, the 11th hidden Sephirah of De'at, to enter into that rectangular portal of De'at and return to the earth. So De'at appears again and again as this portal that enables through intellect the human being to cross over where it otherwise would not be able to enter the realm of the Godhead. So Esau wrestles with Samael in this story, just as Jacob wrestles with Samael in the biblical account. And Esau is tasked with performing tikkun olam in the form of fixing, repairing, restoring the Godhead. The Godhead were the three vessels, the only three vessels that never shattered. They require no tikkun olam. Hell lied to Esau and Jacob and said that the Godhead needed rectification. Esau took the bait. Esau entered his Kelipodic vessel, this little spacecraft vehicle vessel that's in the shape of a sphere, as in the shell, the husk, the Kelipot. He left Malkut, the earth, back into Rebekah's womb, which is tohu vavohu choshech. It is formlessness, emptiness, and darkness. It is chaos and void of the womb of primordial chaos. And he attempted to perform tikkun olam on the Godhead, which is not possible. So his mission was futile, and he failed. His running around in the squirrel cage of the Merkavah was all for nothing. He and his fellow Edomites were all killed by the very demon-possessed Kelipodic technology generated from the fruit of the unripened fruit of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, of the 11th hidden Sephirah of Deat, sent from the planet Saturn to provide mankind in the form of Jacob, and exclusively Jacob, the means to perform tikkun olam and the means to ascend back to the divine realm. When Esau tries to ascend to the divine realm, his very own Kelipodic vessel scoots over to him and rips off his breathing tube, signifying separating the umbilical cord from Rebekah's womb, and kills off Esau. At the same time, hell kills off all the non-Israelites in their hibernation pad. So their efforts at ascent on the Sephirotic tree also were futile. They all fail, they all die off. So the only remaining living being is Jacob. And Jacob has quite a bit different experience. Esau wrestles with the leopard and is killed by his own Kelipodic vessel. The spark of his soul, his yellow spacesuit, is released and is taken over by Jacob, who wears his soul as the red suit of his blood. Jacob enters into his Kelipah Nogah, his shining shell. His spark is now divine. His vessel is a special vessel composed of the Sephirotic vessels as opposed to the Kelipodic vessels. It's referred to in Kabbalah as the Kelipah Nogah, the shining vessel. So he is like the shining darkness. His Kelipot shines. It's different from non-Israelite Kelipot, which are from the hidden tree of death as opposed to the tree of life. And he shoots out and grabs Esau by the heel, as in the biblical story, but this time he succeeds in pulling the corpse of Esau back into the womb of Rebekah so that he can reemerge into Malkut from the womb as the firstborn. And Esau is exterminated. All of Esau's descendants are exterminated. And this is very tellingly portrayed by Jacob grabbing Esau by the heel and pulling him back into the womb. Here's a closer screenshot of it, of the Kelipah Nogah grabbing Esau, Frank Poole's heel, and pulling him back into the womb in reversal of the story of Esau and Jacob to replicate the story of Peretz and Zerah. In the book of 2001, it tells the story of Peretz and Zerah in the form of the body, the corpse of Esau, of Frank Poole, waves its lifeless arm, just as Zerah stuck his hand out of the womb and had the midwives wrapped red yarn around it to mark him as the scapegoat, and then he withdraws his hand back into the womb, and Peretz, who is the reincarnation of Jacob, is born first. And that's what's happening in the film. Jacob can now be born first, but he has to wrestle with the angel of the Lord, with the leopard, with Samael, with Hal, and with his own Kelipodic vessel in order to return and become the firstborn and open the womb to be the firstborn in the Messianic era. So he has to get back into Malkut through his vessel, through his Kelipah Nogah. But Hal won't let him. Hal has sealed off the Keter, Chokhmah, and Binah of the divine realm so that Jacob, who is now firstborn, cannot open the womb and get back into Malkut, back to earth. But Jacob is the intellectual. Jacob wins this wrestling match, and he wins this wrestling match by going through the portal known as the emergency airlift. And the portal is shaped in the form of Deat, the 11th hidden Sephirah. It appears as being black on its inside. And it represents intellect and knowledge, but the knowledge has become ripe. So Jacob knows how to escape the Kelipot of his vessel so that his soul can burst forth, be rectified. The spark can be lifted, raised from its Kelipah, its vessel, and shoot back into earth as the firstborn. And that's exactly what's shown in the movie. Jacob outwits with his intellect, outwits Hal, wrestles with Samael in the form of Hal, and outwits him and wins the wrestling match by exploding the husk, the shell, so that his soul can be ejected, the spark can be lifted from the shell and be exposed, and then return to the earth as the Messiah, son of David. Through the portal of the 11th hidden Sephirot. So on these Kelipodic vessels, the movie is very careful to do close-ups of the hatch, the doorway on the Kelipot, to show that it says caution, explosive bolts. That represents the shattering of the Sephirotic and Kelipodic vessels. And it says it on both the outside of the door and on the inside of the door. So that signifies the fact that these vessels are fragile and can be shattered. And when they are shattered, they release the divine sparks that they contain. They both protect those divine sparks, but they also conceal them and form concealing darkness. And the ultimate goal of Tikkun Olam is to release the divine sparks from the husk, the shell, the Kelipot, to rectify the world, which was in need of repair because the Zeron Pin and Malkut, the 7 lower Sephirotic vessels, shattered. Frank Poole, Esau, Messiah, son of Joseph, fails in that mission and is killed fighting that battle for Messiah, son of David. His mission was always futile. He does not know how to rectify the world. He does not know how to release the sparks and perform Tikkun Olam. But Dave Bowman uses his intellect and utilizes the portal of Deat, the 11th hidden Sephirah, to shatter the Kelipot and to release the spark of his soul in performing Tikkun Olam by causing the bolts to explode and the vessel to shatter. And that's exactly what happens. He blows open the door, and then he is shot out as the release of the sparks back into Malkut through the portal of the 11th hidden Sephirah of Deat. And He then goes on to do something very similar, to cross over from Chesed to Binah, across over the great abyss. So this is also symbolic of passing through the great abyss into the divine realm. But here he is doing it to be the firstborn, as opposed to Esau being the firstborn. So he has stolen Esau's birthright and blessings, and he wears the red suit, the blood of Esau's soul. And the Messiah, son of David, again takes over the soul of Messiah, son of Joseph, and incorporates it into the vessel of his body. Then again, this is, again, I got to give the devil his due. This was a very clever theatrical, metaphorical instrument that Kubrick and Clark came up with to represent this releasing of the sparks from the Kelly pot in this wrestling match between the leopard and the second-born ape-man, this wrestling match of Tikkun Olam, where the 613 mitzvot are performed, and the sparks, 613 mitzvot, and the sparks are raised from the Kelly pot, which enables Jacob to win that wrestling match, to pass the test, and to ascend to the Godhead by performing Tikkun Olam and releasing the sparks. So the way that they portray it in the film is Jacob, Dave Bowman, Rainbow Man, Messiah, son of David, releases the sparks in the memory terminal of hell to kill him and to perform Tikkun Olam. So he actually literally raises these illuminated sparks out of the shell of hell's memory and frees the divine sparks, the soul, the memory of existence, the DNA of the world, the logoi spermatakoi, frees them from the husk, the shell of the memory terminal of hell, and performs Tikkun Olam and rectifies the world and kills Samael. Once he has done that, he has to cross over the abyss on the dark night of the soul. And this was very well described by the Neoplatonists as the body, the flesh, the vessel, the prison of the material world at the very bottom, the most deprived of the original Holy One, the goodness, the light, the love, the beauty, the perfection, the unity of the Holy One, is separated and shattered into ephemeral, chaotic forms. It loses its immortality. So the soul has to separate from that prison of the body in order to reunite with the One and cross over the planets and become the death of the ego, the self, and become one with God. There is a point at which it has to cross over this abyss that separates the divine realm from the lower realm, and that's called the dark night of the soul. And evil spirits emerge from the evil inclination, portrayed in Plato as the black horse pulling the charioteer, Merkava, charioteer of Plato, and the white horse tries to pull, the white horse of the good spirits of the Godhead tries to pull the soul over the great abyss. The black horse represents the body and the material world, trying to lure the soul back to the earth. And it does that by inspiring lusts. It makes the person hungry. It makes the person also have a sexual appetite, all the things which are considered sinful, and tries through these evil things to create doubts in the seeker, in the Kabbalist who wants to cross over this great abyss, and convince him that he can't make it, that he should give up on his journey and he should return to the earth in his body, and that his body will die if he continues on his journey, and his body cries out to him, come back to the body, come back to the earth, give up on this foolishness. But there are also angels, the divine spirits and the Godhead of the white light on the other side of the abyss, encouraging him to continue. And Dave Bowman enters this dark night of the soul and enters the abyss. And it's shown like some kind of psychedelic trip where he is shooting through this abyss. There's a similar scene in Willy Wonka, by the way. So he enters into this dark night of the soul. He lays in a bed. It's a dreamlike state, and his body is trying to convince him that he has to return back to the earth, that he has to keep his body alive. His body is now old. It has endured the 6,000 years, the 6 days of creation, and it is now the first millennium, 6001. His body wants to go back to earth. It wants to engage in sex. It wants to consume food to keep itself alive, even though it is doomed to die because it's growing old. And what happens at this point in the scene, when he is enduring the dark night of the soul, the evil forces in his body are discouraging him, telling him he can't make it, telling him to go back to earth, is he knocks over this crystalline glass, which represents the prism of Deat. Deat is a prism which separates the white light of the Godhead into the 7 rainbow colors, as in Dave Bowman, of the Zeron pin and Malkut below. And that's portrayed in Pink Floyd on the Dark Side of the Moon cover, where the white light enters the prism of this crystalline glass and then is separated into the rainbow. And he knocks over that, and the prism breaks on the floor. And then the prism changes magically into the monolith, which is the 11th Sephirah. The hidden 11th Sephirah of Deat, the black cube, which is shown in phallic form as the rectangular spheroid. So the crystalline prism morphs into the black cube. Dave Bowman is enduring the dark night of the soul, crossing over the abyss in his bed. His body is old and dying, and he utilizes his intellect and the knowledge of the hidden 11th Sephirah of Deat to cross over that abyss into the whiteness of the divine realm. So the prism has shattered and become black, and the rainbow colors have reunited and combined into the whiteness of the Godhead of Keter, Chokhmah, and Binah. Here's another depiction of that same scene. There were some close-ups of him where you can see that he is very old and dying. But he then succeeds in his mission. He has rectified the world. He has raised the sparks through Tikkun Olam, performed the 613 mitzvot. He has helped in the destruction of Esau, and he now is reborn. He is reborn as the firstborn, as Peretz. And Esau and Zerah are exterminated. And now he has to return to earth as that fetus. He has to go through that portal of Deat back into Malkut and go back to the earth to serve as Messiah, son of David. He has to be Yesod, the foundation, the tzaddik, the righteous one, and the prophet, the tzaddik. And he has to return to the earth as the phallus to repopulate the earth with the seeds of God, with the rectified Sephirot that is not shattered. The divine spark is contained in it. It's going to go back to the earth, Malkut, and it's going to lead the Messianic age and provide the seed for the 600,000 immortal androgynes of the world to come, Olam Haba. Wow, that was a lot. So that is the hidden, encrypted, completely and utterly Kabbalistic story told in 2001. There may well have been government and Satanist involvement in all of this. This was a form of sympathetic magic, and it was generated to condition people subconsciously to welcome the year 2001 and the emergence of the Messianic age, the calamities and catastrophes of Esau's failed wrestling match with the leopard and Jacob's successful wrestling match with the Lord. Jacob passes the test. Esau fails, just as Rebekah predicted. And Tikkun Olam is performed. The Messianic era begins. And just as the rainbow just appeared. And Messiah, son of David, Rainbow Man, Bowman, rules everything. And that's what Kubrick and Clark were telling us. I want to, again, thank everyone who has contributed. I want to give special thanks to John Geraitis, who has so generously kept me going with his donations. And please do donate. I'm struggling. It's hard, but I enjoy it very much. And I want to keep giving you these insights. It's so vitally important for people to understand this. It's a shame we can't do a live stream watch party where I could go through every scene and every particular and explain its exact Kabbalistic meanings and the portent of those Kabbalistic meanings for humanity. Thank you all so very much for watching. I'm going to ask Ryder Lee to help me post the interview I did with him. This will all be up in the playlist on Kubrick's Kabbalah. I have an interview coming up with Nina with some more interesting information about all of this. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you again for watching. And I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.